Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be demystifying the different types of triathlon training blocks and explaining how you can use them to organise your training each year and get the most out of yourself while making time for life outside of triathlon. Hello, I'm Josh, a medical student in London currently studying sports and exercise medicine degree while fitting in my triathlon training around that and somehow trying to have a life. On this channel I talk about triathlons, training and time management for those of us with a busy schedule that still want to perform at our best. Today I'll be talking about triathlon training blocks, what they are, why they're important, and breaking down the type of blocks so we understand how to use them better. So to begin, what is a triathlon training block? Well, it's essentially the idea of grouping types of training together in specific parts of the year around your goals to ensure that you are improving in a way and building on the training you've done before. Generally, training blocks are 4 weeks or 8 weeks, and they're this number because they start with 3 weeks of hard training and then 1 week of less hard training, often called a rest week. This is to give our body time to recover and to build upon the training that we've done in the first 3 weeks. And these blocks are all around similar types of workouts, improving the similar aspects of our triathlon performance. They're really good because they allow us to easily plan our yearly training and understand what we need to be doing at each part of the year. And ensuring all workouts are performing in the same aspects means that we're building and improving always on what we've done before. They also make time management and weekly planning easier, which means that we not only perform better in our training and in our races, but also we make more time for things in the rest of our life, which is something that I'm always trying to do. And by building up to our goals in a clear, planned way, it means that we're likely to perform better at them and get more out of the training that we're doing. Traditionally, there are 3 different types of triathlon training blocks, but I like to include a 4th, which I still think is really important. And my 4th one is the one that we're going to talk about first. That's off-season training. Now this is generally from November through to early January, February. This is the time where we don't really have any races, and it's generally where we take some time off. And it might be weird to think of our time off as still training blocks, but I think it's important to think about what we do between the times where we generally train. The aim of this is just to have a bit of fun. It's really easy to get burnt out on training year after year after year, even if you're just doing it as a hobby. But by taking some time away, by doing other types of exercise or things that you find enjoyable, it can keep you fit while giving you back that love of triathlon that you have for most of the year. And it allows us to build up that little bit of fitness before we get back into the first type of block. So for me, my off season looks like a lot of cycling because that's what I love doing. Long cycles, either by myself or with my parents, really low intensity, just for the fun of it really, and exploring new places. But it can also look like cross training. For me, I love to play water polo over the winter, as number one, it's inside, so we really do avoid some of the cold. And it's a team sport, which is something that I really feel like I lack in triathlon. But this could be anything for you. Just do what is fun, really, in the off-season. Don't necessarily think of it as training until you get to the early parts of the new year, when we really are starting to think about our base training. This is the time we work on our endurance. We build up a really good base, hence the name, for the higher intensity speed work that we're going to be doing later in the year. The types of things that we're doing in this is our classic long rides. The cyclists generally will be doing 5 or 6 hour rides, and that's not necessarily important for triathlon. 3-4 hours regularly if you're doing Olympic distance will set yourself up for easily smashing the cycling portion of your triathlon. Lots of easy runs to bulk up mileage without adding too much on initially, as we want to avoid injury, especially at the start of our season. Looking at longer swims and getting out to open water, if possible, is a great idea during this point and puts us in a great place for harder workouts down the line. And this is also an amazing point of the year to do more technique-based sessions, especially in swimming, where it's so based off of technique. And some people really make the argument that you should do absolutely no speed work in your base training phase. And although this has been true over time, I really do think that the opinions about this are starting to change. And so if you're strapped for time, especially in the early months of the year, I think adding a little bit of speed work, adding some intensity, some interval work is a really good way to make your training more efficient and ensuring that you're still getting a lot of the benefits from a traditional, really time-heavy base training phase. The next type of training block is the build phase, and this is where we start to work on the great base foundation that we've made in our first block. We begin to add moderate intensity work, bridging between our endurance and our real speed, technical race focus. And we can start to do more race specific work, but we really want to save that and just continue with a relatively high volume with some intensity in there. A really easy way to keep in lots of the volume is by keeping up at least 1 or 2 long cycles a week, as this is a great way to build volume while still having a really enjoyable time as compared to trying to do really long swims or runs. And even if you have been doing some speed work in your base phase, this is the time where you want to start increasing that, looking at middle distance efforts, threshold efforts on the bike, 1k to 2k repeats on our run, avoiding really hard short efforts, no 400 meter repeats for instance, but still kind of improving our anaerobic capacity and our VO2 max. As you get closer to your race or your event, whatever your goal might be, the final block is the speciality block, and this is where we really start to home in on our race specific components to get ready to race and to get the most out of ourselves. Working on race specific scenarios, such as doing brick sessions where we cycle and then run directly afterwards, helps us to prepare for the unique challenges of doing a triathlon and can also ensure that we perform better on the day. This is the best part of the year to be doing more speed workouts, looking at those really short, high intensity workouts and having a slightly lower overall training load when it comes to pure time, as this will mean that we are less fatigued when we come to the race and less fatigued for our high training speed sessions. My favourite types of training during this period are my brick sessions, where I would do a threshold session on the bike and then hopping off the bike straight into a run, whether it be an easy run or some sort of intervals, normally 1 to 2k repeats around my tempo pace is a great type of workout. Speed sessions on the bike and in the pool I find are really useful, looking at 50 to 100 meter repeats in the pool and getting race specific things, little things like getting our wetsuit on and off, practicing bike mounting at speed and hopping off, and if you know the event that you're doing, thinking about the specific type of swim start you'll be doing, whether that's diving in to open water, starting in open water, diving into a pool, whatever it would be. Getting more familiar with those things is really, really, really beneficial, as it will just increase your confidence massively when it comes to your event. And so finally, I'd just like to talk about how to structure these around your goals. My preferred method is to pick an A race or a most important goal in the year and work backwards from that point. So I pick a race that I really care about performing the best in. I then put my speciality block, normally 4 to 8 weeks, directly in front of that, and then once that's in my calendar, I then add my build block and then my base block. and figure out when I need to start training to ensure that I feel fully ready for my goal. And as you go, you can then start to fill in each block with weekly training plans as you go, so you know what you're going to be doing each day, but you still have an overall structure to ensure that you're constantly working towards your goal of performing best in your next race. And if you want to know more about weekly training plans and how I organise my week and how I suggest you should organise your week, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that will be my next video. That concludes this episode. I hope that you have got some benefit and have a better understanding around what can be a very confusing topic of triathlon training blocks. Thank you so much. On screen now you'll see a playlist of my other triathlon training organisational videos, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing.